Now, let's welcome our main speaker for tonight, which is Scott R.
My name's Scott Redman. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Patty for asking me to come and participate in your meeting tonight, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate being invited down to come and hang out with you and participate in your AA meeting down here. I want to welcome all the new people, and congratulations to all the chip takers and birthday people. I want to thank the first speaker, and I want to welcome you if you're new to AA. I want to tell you what happened to me. I'm 50 years old. I know I don't look it, and I haven't had a drink since April 22nd, 1985. I did not have alcoholism when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I caught alcoholism in AA meetings. I want to welcome all the drug addicts here tonight. I'd like to welcome if you're a dope fiend, which is somehow worse than any of us. I'd like to welcome you to AA. And I'd like to welcome any tweakers here tonight also. I love you. They stay quick for a while, and every part of their face is moving in a different direction. I really like it. Now, I'm not making fun of you. I'm coming pretty close, but I'm not making fun of you. And I'll tell you why I'm not making fun of you. I did not have alcoholism when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had been shooting junk but I'd stop shooting stuff like when my father died and I was loaded on heroin the night he died. Stop. Don't want to do that anymore. Don't want to be that kind of guy. Guy shows up loaded the night his old man dies. Easy to not be that guy. Stop shooting junk. You stop shooting junk and you're not that guy. I'm not that guy. If you're new, you're going to hear some wacky shit about alcoholism now that you're here. Some of it might work for you and some of it might not. I was very confused when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing that ever pissed me off that I heard about alcoholism at meetings have I ever found in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've heard stuff about alcoholics don't like this, like alcoholics don't like change. I just don't like change I don't like, but I like, but I love change I like. I've never been pissed off by change that I like, but I don't like. So there's stuff that people say about alcoholics that don't. I've heard my favorite. I've heard that alcoholics are above average intelligence. I have only heard this at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. I've never heard it anywhere. I've never heard it at an Al-Anon meeting ever in my life. So yeah, we're a bunch of smarty pants, all right. So if you hear stuff at meetings that really pisses you off, take a look in the book or talk to somebody who's familiar with the material. For me, I've never found anything that's pissed me off that I've heard at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings in the big book of AA. And if you're new here, I also want to tell you that once I became acquainted with the literature, it cleared up a lot of the meetings for me, because I was going to meetings and I was getting very confused. And I was already living in a psychological theme park anyway. I mean, when I got here, I was just very confused and disrupted. I think that's a good description, confused and disrupted, and distracted. And once I got acquainted with the literature, I'd started going to meetings and listening to people share, and I'd say, oh, he's talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. He's not talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know what he's talking about, but I judge no man, because I'm too spiritually developed. So I didn't have alcoholism when I got here. Number one, I'm Jewish, and Jews don't drink. Right, because it might dull the pain, right? And, certainly. And I know you don't want to squander any agony opportunity that presents itself. One of the first guys that saved my life in AA was this guy in my original home group, this morning group. This guy identified, I was like a week sober, and he identified, he said, I'm ex-Catholic, which means I don't believe in God, and I'm therefore positive God is going to come kill my ass for feeling that way. And I just said, man, I'm just going to sit next to that cat. I mean, because I had been introduced to an Old Testament God that got you, smote your ass, and got you, that I wouldn't be caught in a dark alley with. That you had to learn a foreign language to talk to him, and he got you. And I was brought up in the Bronx in New York City to a really troubled family, a really crazy bunch of people. And my wife never believed me about him until she met him. And I had understated the problem. I had not exaggerated it. It was my mom threw an engagement party for us, and my aunt came and wore her wig backwards, and it had a bun on it, so the bun was out front, and it was just like it was just a psycho parade, and my wife just walked around as if she had been struck by a wrecking ball. I mean, it was just awful, and there was chronic institutionalization and suicide attempts. A lot of people went to mental institutions for long periods of time and died there. There was mental and physical abuse. And my family didn't have one single solitary thing to do with making me an alcoholic. And if you're new, that might be really confusing, because a lot of really bad stuff might have happened to you. I'm not saying that it didn't happen to you. A lot of bad stuff happened to me, and I had to do a lot of stuff about it, but it didn't make me alcoholic. One of the other reasons I wasn't alcoholic when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous is I had been in psychotherapy for 18 years. I was going to be dead, but I was going to understand it. And I have no beef with therapy. I've used therapy plenty in sobriety. I was trying to treat my alcoholism with psychotherapy, which is like showing up at a gunfight with a knife, and just getting these colossal ass poundings. And if my family had made me an alcoholic, I did good work in therapy. I could have cleared up my family problems and been able to drink like a normal person. I wouldn't have had to go to parties anymore and say, oh, no heroin for me, I'll have a Perrier. Right? I'll just be like the other normal people. But it's a funny thing. Once I got in Alcoholics Anonymous and studied our literature and found out what Dr. Silkworth, if you're new, there's a section called The Doctor's Opinion. He talks about moral psychology, which is really different from psychology. I was trying to treat my alcoholism with psychology. The idea in most psychology, Freudian psychology, is to uncover, discover, and unravel, to free associate, to shine a light on your problems, talk about the anxiety, shed light on it, and come up with a better resolution for your anxiety. A neurosis is an unsatisfying resolution for anxiety. It means your solutions are worse than your problems. Sound familiar at all? Okay, so I'm going to therapy, and I'm saying I'm anxious. Why? Well, this afternoon I sharpened a hypodermic needle on the back of a matchbook striker, sucked some heroin up through a fluffed up cigarette filter, and injected it in my arm. I feel horrible. What are we going to do about that? Are we going to talk about that? Are we going to talk about what were you thinking? What were you thinking right before you sharpened the hypodermic needle on the matchbook striker? The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that if the alcoholic, if you discuss with them why they've done this, no matter the attendant misery and suffering that follows every single time, and I just love this, it ate my lunch. One of the first things that knocked me out of my chair in our book. If the alcoholic doesn't blow you off, if they stay with you, odds are they have no more idea than you. I don't think it's gonna work out real well. The other thing is my alcoholism is too efficient. It produces anxiety at such a horrifying rate that you would need a panel of therapists working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to catch my shit, just to catch it, just to review it. They'd be backed up like a federal court. I'm telling you, within 3 days. But I don't know any of this at the time. I'm dutifully going to therapy and really trying to work this stuff out. Anytime I sponsor a guy and I say, how you doing? He says, I'm working on myself. I go, oh, man. Oh, step away from yourself. And I'll tell you why. My disease reacts horribly to a frontal assault. It does. It doesn't do well with me swearing oaths With any frontal assault at all, my disease does very, very poorly. That's why they kept saying to me that we're gonna encourage you to take some seemingly unrelated actions. It's a war of attrition. This moral psychology, uncover, discover, and apply. Really remarkable. And I grew up in the Bronx, going to therapy, swapping addiction, shot dope till I didn't want to be a dope fiend, snorted coke till I didn't want to be a cokehead. Alcohol was on the table every day, and in my early 20s, I couldn't show up for my old man the night he died, and my father was really lost to me. I couldn't talk about him. I didn't own a picture of him. Anytime I even thought of him, it was just like getting whacked with a brick. Shortly after that, I was acting in a Broadway play, and a new usherette with brown hair walked in, and I took one look at her and didn't even say hello to her. And I walked into the men's dressing room and said, if anybody talks to the new usherette with long brown hair, I'll break all the bones in your hands and feet. And we celebrated 26 years of marriage 2 days ago. You don't even get 26 years for murder, if you think about it, We're having a really interesting time. We really are. We have a great time. We have a terrible time. We look at each other now and again and go, what was I thinking? 26 years down the line, and then we have great joy and great pleasure together. We got the whole deal. Just got the whole deal. I will tell you this, I no longer see my wife as some sort of emotional black hole that is sucking my life force away from me 24 hours a day, and I don't see her as the source of any of my problems. She's a very nice compliment to some of my problems, but I don't see her as the source of any of my problems. Oh, I'm so glad she's not here today. Nancy and I got married. We had a beautiful son named Micah, and he was really welcomed into the world. And 2 years and 9 months later, we had a beautiful son named Jesse, who was not welcomed into the world at all. There was nobody at the hospital, no one visited, no phone calls, no flowers, nothing. We had become completely isolated by the disease of alcoholism in just 2 years and 9 months. And it wasn't because people didn't love us. It just hurt too much to be around us. We were like radioactive. We pressed ourselves on the people that loved us like a thumb upon a bruise. The ice around our heart had become so thick, it just repelled everybody. And little were we to know that was going to continue for 3 more years. 3 more years from that terribly isolated, horrible place where my careers just ran out between my fingers like a handful of water over and over and over again. When we met, I was acting on Broadway. I had my own theater in New York, directed films. I had a book on the bestseller list by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so we started on Broadway. I'll just tell you where we wound up. This is a good day at the Redman home. I had a job driving a limousine, and I would get so creamed driving the limousine. When they bring the divider up, it's a one-way mirror. And I had no short-term memory, because I had so much alcohol and Quaalude in me. So you bring it up, and it's a mirror. They can see you, but you can't see them. So when you're driving at night, that mirror is reflecting what's coming you on the road. And if you look in the rear view mirror, you see what's in front of you. So I'd look in the mirror, and I'd try to steer away from it. So I'd look in the mirror and go, ah, and turn the car. And then I'd forget. I had the retention of a chiclet, while I was driving this. And I kept doing it, and they'd roll down the window and say, what? And I go, oh, the wind advisory. It's dust devils. Oh, man. And this is my fantasy. I've got Quincy Jones and Steven Spielberg in the back of this limousine, and I'm driving them to Barbra Streisand's house. And this is my head. I drive into the living room. I crush Streisand to death. We all die in a fireball. And I'm on the 9 o'clock news. There's no question about it. I'm famous. So I was a social climber by the time I got here. And this was a good morning in the Redman home. I I got into an accident, and the doctor said, you know what, you have high blood pressure, you're going to have to lose some weight. And I said, you know what, I'd like to. But I drink alcohol and I smoke marijuana before I go to bed every night, so I'm not going to be able to. And he said to me, why don't I prescribe some medication for you? And I said, what a country. And he prescribed for me chloral hydrate, which is just it's a fabulous pill. It's a Mickey. It's a knockout drop. It's a fast-acting medication. I love these pills. I love my knockout drops. So Nancy comes home. I'm eating handfuls of knockout drops and slamming my arms into the wall to keep myself awake to enjoy my knockout drop. Because you don't want to waste a perfectly good Mickey. And I'm eating these things and slamming body parts into the wall until I just seize and keel over. So now I'm going to bed, and I'm incontinent like the rest of the 33-year-old men in America because I got too much Mickey, so I'm wet in the bed every night. But it's for my blood pressure. And one night I got up and wet the wall, and everyone was excited the next morning. Dad wet the wall. He's headed towards the bathroom. It's progress, not perfection, man. This is like a Wheaties morning in the Redman household. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. On April 22nd, 1985, my sons were 6 and 3 years old. They were diagnosed as being functionally retarded in school. Their small motor skills were all screwed up. They could barely read or write. They tested in excess of 150 IQ, and they could barely put sentences together. Jesse was playing those war games and robot games. He was 3, and there's nothing wrong with those games, but he couldn't stop. And the feeling of the people who were trying to help him at that time was that it hurt so much to be a person that being a robot was just a lot better. So that's where he went. My kids were dying from alcoholism, and I didn't even have it. Our book talks about the warped lives of blameless wives and children. And if you take a look at the thinking that's described, the template of thinking that's described in Alcoholics and in the people who were around alcoholics in the 2nd and 3rd chapters of the book, they were mirrored completely with my sons. My sons were living in a world where nothing ever worked out. So they were either pointlessly aggressive en route to a goal that never was achieved, or they throw in the towel. What's the use anyhow? I'll stop after the 6th drink. How did it happen again? You know? And we were in horrible condition. And on April 22nd, 1985, I crossed the line I swore I would never cross again. I put a needle in my arm again. I hadn't done it in 13 years, not since the night my father died. And my world just came absolutely grenading around me. I called my therapist in my 18th year of psychotherapy, my first Jungian therapist, and he said to me that morning the exact same thing that Carl Jung told the man who 12-stepped Bill Wilson. I didn't know that until I read our literature. But he said the exact same thing to me. He said, I can't help you. There's absolutely nothing that I can do for you. And I was horrified. I mean, therapy was the thing I turned to. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, the only thing I can suggest is you attend a meeting of Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, or we have you institutionalized. Now, I don't know why I went to that AA meeting. I really don't. Because I still have that thinking. I mean, a couple of years ago, I'm 14 years sober, and a doctor told me I needed surgery on my hand, and he said, you know, Mr. Redman, you're going to need general anesthetic. And I said, oh, general anesthetic. That's great. Normal people don't get excited about general anesthetic. There's no normal human being that goes, oh. I do, and I'll tell you why. I know what happens when they hit you with general anesthetic. They hit you with it, they say count backwards from 100, and you say 100, 99. I love 99. I love 99. I just won't trade my life in for 99 anymore. I won't. One of the most misquoted lines in the big book of AA for me is, I've heard people say, my worst day in here is better than my best day out there. No. No. Let's see, a pound of cocaine in an all-female jazz band or a candlelight at the Clare Foundation. What do I gonna do? What the hell am I gonna? Now it's getting tough. Now it's getting tough. Oh, man. What the book says is I wouldn't trade my worst day in here for my best day out there, because I won't trade in this way of life. I won't live like a loser anymore. I won't settle for a nickel today when I could have a quarter for tomorrow. I won't do it. That makes sense to me, because I loved the drinking and the drugs. I'm just nuts about them. So I don't know why I went to that first AA meeting instead of going to the nut house, but I did. I went to one meeting that a friend of mine just came from and drank immediately after it. Then I went to another meeting. I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning to go to a 7 a.m. meeting. Got my best clothes on and got a bad check to write you, and went to go to the A&A. And I walked into a place called Unit A in the San Fernando Valley, right next to the lovely Tonga Hut. If Satan is on Earth, I believe he is in Polynesian-themed bars. That's where I think he is, in them big heads. And I took one look at this room, I walked in and I said, oh my God. How did this happen to me? I mean, how did I wind up at this? Is beyond lame. This is beyond church, beyond synagogue. This is some plateau of lameness I never even imagined was available to me. And the room looked like it was the product of about 200 years of inbreeding. I mean, the whole room. It was absolutely extraordinary. They were like identical twins carving their initials on each other's feet. And everything was a miracle. I'm a miracle. You're a miracle. The furniture and coffee are miracles too. And I'm waiting for the Jew hunt to start. I know that's going to happen any minute, right? Come on, Jaime, strap these antlers on. Always wanted to run a big buck Jew. Then the unsolicited AA information guy comes. You know him, right? He's got one tooth with a cavity in it, right? He's wearing a belt buckle large enough to serve an entire fish on. Do I want what you've got? No, I don't. But thanks for spitting on me. I really appreciate it. I really do. I'll see you next week. It's a miracle. Yeah. Good. Do I bring my own bib overalls next week? Am I issued a pair? This was beyond any level of horror that I had ever even conceived of. So I went back every morning for a year. And the people in that room, still a lot of them are my friends. I haven't seen the twins again, but and at that time it wasn't that. I mean, 17 years ago, a lot of meetings were a lot more. Had a tough time hearing people talk about drugs, even if people identified as an alcoholic. So I was real scared. I was real scared that if I told my story, I'd be asked to leave. And you know what? That wasn't really a crazy idea. I'd been to some meetings where guys weren't asked to leave. I mean, it wasn't something that I just trumped up. And there was a guy at this morning meeting. He was an old junkie, great guy, still around, named Richie B. And he used to talk about drugs all the time just to make the old timers just nuts. He would just get them like this, and he had a lot of time, which really pissed them off. I mean, then he had 10 years, and he just, I loved this guy. I used to sit next to him. I used to feel so safe next to this guy. One morning, he's sharing, and he said, when Urban Cowboy came out, everybody went out and bought cowboy boots. And like a good junkie, I went and bought green anaconda skin cowboy boots. And I wore them once, took a look at them in the mirror, and never wore them again. And every morning when I open my closet, those boots look at me and go, "Hello, asshole." And I said, dude, everything is talking to me, everything. When I'm driving through the streets, you're an asshole, you're an asshole. I mean, I just got it. I totally got what he was talking about. And the steps didn't keep me sober. I wouldn't have known a step if it bit me on the ass, I was terrified and I was out of plans. If you're new here, I pray for you that you're out of plans. If you've got a plan, it's probably a beaut. Don't use your plan. Grab one of us after the meeting and tell us your plan. we want to know the plan. And my personal favorite newcomer plan that has been the most popular that I've seen over the years is the one more dope deal to set myself up financially for sobriety plan. Yeah. It's gonna wind up in the soft literature rack eventually, because this sucker, I'm telling you, man, the guy with a lot more time with me went like that. Yeah, it's true. And I was out of plans, and I stayed, and I don't know why, but I did, and I stuck around Alcoholics Anonymous for 6 months and enjoyed the gift of step none, which is nothing. I did nothing. I received nothing. I just went to a lot of meetings and followed some guys around. It's really funny, because when I came in, there were a lot of old timers, and some guys were saying, "You're a moron, sit down, shut up." And I said, "Feels just like home." And in a lot of places that I was going, there was this assumption, or something that was talked about a lot, that these guys kind of had, were very wise and knew something. And once I stuck around and knew what the work was and associated with a lot of people, I found out that some of those guys really did, and some of them were just mean. Just mean and ignorant. And weren't involved in working the steps, weren't still writing inventory, weren't really even working with newcomers, just sat around and were wise. And I judge no man, I already told you that. But I want to tell you, that was a relief for me to find that out. It was a relief for me to find out that there were people with 20, 25, 30, 35 years of sobriety who work with newcomers all the time and are writing inventory or admitting their defects to another person and getting it out there. And that other thing, it was just, again, it was real important for me to know that, because I wasn't attracted to that mean stuff. I'm still not attracted to it. I don't like it. I don't like being around it. I enjoy the scalpel of truth when it's applied with the anesthetic of love. That's fine. And I need truth. But if it's just teeing off on me, I'm telling you, I'm not available for it. So I found a great guy, really great guy. And and I just can't tell you how wonderful it is for me when I come into an AA meeting and members of Al-Anon are welcomed and asked to identify. It's just so great for me. I love it. God bless you for having that in your format. It's just wonderful. Because I saw it in my wife. My wife reached out to the Al-Anon family groups, and I saw the deal in her. She says she saw it in me, and I really saw it in her, and saw it in her sponsor, who was a remarkable woman. And so this guy made sure I'd done some reading from the Big Book of AA, and he invited me to his apartment, and he read Chapter 5 to me, and on the way through, we took the first 2 steps together, and we reached Step 3, and got on our knees and said a prayer, which I felt was embarrassing and unnecessary, but I did it anyway. And he finished Chapter 5, and he went back and he gave me instructions on how to do a 4th step from the Big Book of AA. And I stopped feeling like I was stealing somebody's chair here. I really felt landed. And I took 3 months to write my inventory. I went back to my sponsor and shared it with him. At 9 months of sobriety, I did Step 6 and 7 for the first time, which has sort of become the centerpiece for my relationship with God, the real fulcrum for me prying my life open and inviting God in. And then I had to do my 8-step list. And the best reading of the 8-step I've ever heard, I try to share this anytime I talk, it just was an extraordinary experience I had. I was a couple of weeks sober, and I was at my home group at that time, which was the Monday night North Hollywood men's meeting. And there was a guy there who had never read Chapter 5 before. His name was Nino. I've never seen him before, and I've never seen him since. This was 17 years ago. And he was there with a hospital group. He had never read Chapter 5 before. He had a heavy New York accent, and he was asked to read it in front of this group that night. And he got up to Step 8, and he read, "Made a list of all those we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all." Jesus Christ! And he looked out into the room as if to say, "Have you seen this? Has anybody looked in here?" It was so beautiful because he read it and just, what the hell? And it was because it's the only thing I saw on the steps. I didn't see anything else, man. Not those people, not that money. I would not have taken that much money if I knew I had to give it back. Would anybody of here have taken that much money if you knew you had to give it back? No. We're above average intelligence. There's no way we're going to do something like that. Oh, man. And my wife and my kids and my dad had to go on my 8-step list, and I didn't know what I was going to do about any of it. And I started listening to speakers. I heard some incredible stories about people working the inventory and finding out what they had to do with amends. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I certainly couldn't sit down with my wife or my children and apologize. That would have been really inappropriate. And I didn't know what I was going to do about my dad. The writing a letter and going to the grave did not help me out. I didn't feel any relief for it. And my sponsor he refused to tell me what to do. He refused to play God with me. I'll never be able to repay him for that. The only way I can repay him for that is by not playing God with other guys. And he didn't give me a series of tasks to do. All he said was, do your job in Alcoholics Anonymous. See what happens. Do your job. Address your inventory as your spiritual task, and now go, man, go. Don't sit here and see if you're going to get relief. Is that going to relieve you? Or are you going to take your emotional temperature 15 times a day? That's not what this is about. And I started doing my job in Alcoholics Anonymous. I had to start doing a lot of lame crap. Very, very lame. Highly lame. I had to start going, showing up at Little League games. I had to the teachers, I had to go into my kid's school and do something terrible for me, embarrassing and terrifying. I had to sit down with the people in school and say, look, my son's very smart. You know he's very smart. And he's been really difficult for you. And the reason why is because he's been living with me and I've been really sick. And they've become ill from living with me. And we're trying a whole new thing. Can you help us? And not once ever has anyone said no. Not one time. They said, of course we can. Let's test the kids. They tested them, and they tested special. They needed help. And there's tons of resources that got cut loose for my kids. I mean, they got extraordinary educations in LA Unified. And the teacher said, get them into big motor stuff. We'll see if we can help the small motor stuff. Get them into music. Get them into sports. So I took some dope dollars and, bought him a mitt. Wacky idea. Took right into my alcohol budget and got him into the Little League, got him into, did the right thing. My sons have received 17 appropriate birthday gifts on the day of their birthday that they wanted. Not once in 17 years have they received the day after radioactive guilt gift from the only place that would take a hot check from me. Here's some drywall, boys. All the kids are loving the drywall right now. It's Pokemon drywall. I've exercised the birthday muscle 17 times. I don't feel guilty on my kid's birthday. It's not a woo-woo idea. It's just working it out, And so we got him into music, and Jesse wanted to play drums, so I went. I didn't have any dough, so I went and I did the right thing. I went to a music store and spent a couple of bucks on getting him a drum pad. A little piece of wood, piece of rubber, 2 sticks. That's what he wanted. I got it for him. And I went to my home group and I told the guys what I had done. Not to brag, but I'll tell you why I told them. Because they wanted to know. They wanted to know. They were really interested in me, in my family. They really wanted to know. And I told them, and I was really proud of myself. And within 2 weeks, the AA drum set showed up at our house. There were like a lot of burnout drummers in my group at that particular time. And guys are showing up with these Megadeth drums, dude. And Jesse had a drum set so huge that when he sat behind it, he disappeared. This little tiny voice came out from behind it. And Micah got his deal going, and that was a long time ago. 2 years ago, my sons played the House of Blues on Sunset Strip. They burnt the dump down. And playing hip-hop music to a packed house of about 900 kids. And just remarkable. And over on the side was this small group of weeping middle-aged alcoholics. Been following them around for 17 years. kids are kind of going, what's with the crying old people, man? What is that? Wow. Kind of a cool sort of thing. You told me and my wife to not get involved in our first year, and we didn't. And we stayed the hell away from each other. I was uncivilized. I was an uncivilized alcoholic. If you got in between me and the drink, you disappeared or became paper mache. You became something less than human, or you vanished. And how much vanishing can a family do before they believe they don't exist? You know. And I didn't know how to fight. I'd either scream until she shut up or I'd cry until she shut up. Either one's fine. I like the tyranny of helplessness. It always has worked very, very well for me. I'm a loomer. I like to loom. I like to loom with a light behind me and get her like in a shadow. It's like total eclipse of the Jew, if I can really get her right in there, you know? And if I can work like a cry, a scream, and a loom into one fight, it's a hat trick. It doesn't really get, it doesn't. So this is what I'm bringing to the table. These are the relationship skills. Here, I'll give you the Scott Redman couples relationship. Here it is. Here's the workshop, 11 seconds. I talk to you until you change your mind. I talk to you until your eyes roll back in your head and you keel over, and on the way over you go, oh, okay. There it is. Go with God. I don't even know how to clean a house. I don't feel like a grown man. I don't know how to clean a house. I think somewhere in the back of my head that a certain amount of housework should equal a certain amount of sex. That there should be like conversion tables on the back of cleaning products of housework to sex. I don't even get like a guy should make a bed. I don't get it. I don't get any of it. I just stayed away from my poor wife for a long time, for at least the first year, and we had to really find a way to get God involved in our marriage. We went to therapy, worked out great stuff in therapy, then went home and threw a Buick at each other. I mean, it just, and it wasn't until we started praying together, uncover, discover, and apply moral psychology. It wasn't until we started saying, Pop, can you help us out? Can you help? We've somehow had our sense of humor surgically removed. What's happened? Plus, I'll pray with anybody. I'll pray with a known puppy strangling felon. Right? In a public place. Do the third step? No, go, baby, let's go. Anywhere on the street, doesn't matter. Pray with my wife? Ooh, unnecessary and embarrassing. This is my wife, my lover, my buddy, my bride, my confidant, the person I'm supposed to be most intimate with. I'll do it with a guy who has a ribbon of drool swinging off his cheek, right? That's fine. We'll pray. And when we started doing that, our lives really started changing together, tremendously. We got nailed in the Northridge earthquake really bad. Really bad. Our house got all wrecked up. I had a bad physical injury, and shortly after the quake, I was at a AA function out of town, and this woman, who was an LA expatriate, came up to me at this function out of town. She used to live in LA, and she said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad that God got us out of LA before the quake." So I said to her, "So he likes you, but we're crap, but he likes you." And she said to me, "I guess he just felt you had some lessons to learn." I'm out of here. I'm just telling you, if I had a God like that, if I had a God saying, "Get him, get the Redman boy, no evacuation plan for you, Jew boy, get him, turn his wife to salt, kill his goat, put a finger in his eye, get him, I'm gonna smote your ass right now." I'm out of here. I'm out of here. If I had a God where I saw the deliberate hand of God in the suffering of people, I'm out of here. The big book of AA says that invariably I place myself in a position to be hurt if I'm resentful at someone. I'm resentful at Nazis for slaughtering Jews. How am I at fault? I said this to my sponsor. How am I at fault? He said, you're not getting it. I said, why? He said, they're not asking you if the event was your fault. They're asking you if the resentment's your fault. Is the event your fault? In this situation, clearly not. Is the resentment your fault? Yes, every time without exception. Because I don't just dislike Nazis and stand up for myself and work against them. Take some money and donate to other kinds of situations. Talk about it, study it, stand up for myself, not like them. I don't do that. I hate them. I hate them with a hatred that when I wake up in the morning, I water the hatred like a little flower and care for it. If I realize I've forgotten to hate it, I'm dismayed. And I have to redouble my hatred for a certain amount of time to make up for the lost hatred time. I hate things in a way where when my head hits a pillow, it becomes a rotisserie. It eats my brain and my heart and turns my life black and throws me out of my own life. I'm resentful of Nazis. What is it in me that if God were to remove the resentment would be gone? I'm a hypocrite because I hear a German accent and I hate them without even finding out who they are. I'm not living in today. I'm ashamed. I'm not trusting in God. And my life opened up because I got to be free of that stuff and then actually participate in politics. Do all of this other stuff. Be in the mainstream of life without suffering from this horrible spiritual malady. And I got a lot of problems. I have a lot of problems in sobriety. And I know some people don't, and I don't doubt them. I don't doubt that they don't. My sponsor is a guy with a lot of problems, and I watch him really close because he talks about him in an open and honest way and tells me how he's inviting God into him. My last two sponsors, my former sponsor passed away a couple of years ago, and my new sponsor also, were two guys with over 30 years of sobriety. The only reason that I mention the amount of time they have is because they're voracious learners. Both of them were always coming to me with saying, have you read this? Do you want to do this? I've got a new thing to do with 6 and 7. I want to talk to you about this newcomer that I'm working with. That's what I want. I want the whole deal. I came in here without alcoholism. I've got this terrible case of alcoholism now. Terrible. I have a fatal case of alcoholism. And I came in with just a mild case. If you're new here, I want to welcome you to AA. And as our first speaker was talking about, our problem mainly rests in our mind. Alcoholics Anonymous is the only text I know about recovery from a fatal illness that contains the sentence, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. There's no book about cholera that says cholera is a hoot. You'll love cholera. You'll meet other people with cholera. It's fabulous. Alcoholics Anonymous is the only disease I know of that actually leaves the sufferer in better condition than they were in before they contracted the disease. It's pretty remarkable. And the bad news is our problem mainly rests in our mind, because you'll see men and women come in here with bottoms that will make your hair stand on end. You'll look at them and say, they're done. There's just no way. There's just no way they're going to drink after this. And after a period of time, it won't be their bottom. It'll be a period of time where people were thinking behind their back and treating them poorly. And you'll see them get on with the business of dying, and it's an extraordinary thing. If you're new, I want to welcome you to AA and suggest that you just get a diagnosis. My whole life, my alcoholism went down below the horizon, didn't stop presenting itself as a real problem, and just appeared as a complaint in my life. And what's happened to me in AA is my alcoholism is buoyed above the horizon, appears to me as a real and present danger, even when I'm not focused on it, even when I'm not concentrating on it. It's lofted on the shoulders of the men and women of Alcoholics Anonymous one day at a time. And I'll never be able to repay you. Thanks so much for having me down tonight. I appreciate it.